Okay, good evening, good afternoon, or good morning, whichever the part you're connecting from across the globe. This is Anushly. I'm going to be your host for the next 1 hour and 15 minutes. And I'm really glad to have all of you here. And I can see most of you are Abhyudaya community members. That's wonderful. So, few ground rules before we start, right? So as I said, we have received the consent for the recording, but at any given point you feel that you want to pause the recording before you share something, you can let me know. Or towards the end of the recording, you feel that you don't want this to exist, you can let me know that too. Because we are going to touch some of your sensitive emotions. We are going to explore some of your sensitive emotions in today's conversation. And you can completely be yourself and feel free to unmute yourself, ask questions, clarify. And I will also make sure I will be myself because that's the only thing I know. I don't know to be anything else. And what else? I will make sure that I will not judge you for anything that you bring to this space. And though we all are coaches, I like to just to give a friendly reminder to all of you that not to judge anybody from this space for any stories that they bring in today's conversation. Okay, just try your best to see the conversation as it is and the other individual as they are, and join with me in this journey. Are you ready for that? Super. So let me first share the screen. Okay. All right. So can you see the first picture and the last picture? Okay. What does it say? When I started to explore the ego in mastery, the journey I started with was the first picture, which is the Om symbol that most of the Hindus will be knowing about that. And then how did I come up with this symbol? I really don't know. I just randomly picked this symbol and started the journey. And what is the picture that I ended this journey? I won't say end, paused, or somewhere I kind of landed is with the next picture, which says, satisfy your soul, not the society. Okay, can you see that beautiful bend of that plant? So like everyone else, I was also in this journey of seeking for something, seeking. And at least now I'm in a place to say that I'm no more a seeker. And the reason is because I realized from this whole seeking journey that the real voyage of discovery consists not in seeking new landscapes, but in having new eyes. Okay. So you might, I'm sure you could have come across a couple of YouTube videos, travelers talking about traveling a lot of places. And somewhere they have come to a realization towards the end of the journey is that after traveling all the places seeking for something, I realized the home is inside me. It's me and not outside there. But for some people, you have to go through the journey of seeking for something to arrive to your own home. For some people, you don't have to go through that journey. You might arrive to your own home with some realization. So there's nothing right or wrong about that. Okay. So this is where I landed. What we are going to do today is there's a research that I did about ego um, in mastery. Okay, so the research details are this. Like this research was done through online Google form, and I'm sure some of you also participated in this research. 38 participants participated in this research, and 2 people refused to participate, which is okay. I did not judge them for not participating. It's their personal choice. And some people said it was difficult or longer, but it was useful and reflective to participate in this reflection. And some offer gratitude for offering the space to pause and reflect on their own egos. So this research questions help them to pause and reflect on their own egos, which they have never ever done. And this research is continuous and will have multiple phases. So what you're going to see today only the phase 1 of this research. So I have been doing this. I am on a continuous journey on this research. The current presentation is only the first phase, and apart from basic information about the person, 15 questions were asked from all these people, and it was not limited to coaches and was not limited to any age group, with the intention to practice DEIB, which is diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, and believing in multi-dimensional organic human intelligence. All right. And the most important disclaimer that I like to give before we start, researchers are only biased opinion based on the egoic or non-egoic truths of the individuals who participated from the collected sample data of this research. Okay? It may or may not be the ultimate truth of the human existence or the universe. We human beings may not be evolved enough to validate or understand the deepest universal truth. We think we know, we have understood, but we may not be. So I understand that we all are waiting for a proof to believe something through a research or something like that. But in my own journey, what I have understood or realized is the truth is the ultimate truths do not have proof. Just like the air, life source energy we have, you can sense them, but may not be able to prove or describe them with a human language because it's phenomenal. It's beyond our own understanding. So I invite you to spend the next 1 hour and 15 minutes by exploring the unknown with me, with your curious hat, and without arriving to any definite conclusion. Why? Because I do not want to mislead you with my egoic mind. Is everyone okay with that? Can I have a thumbs up if yes? Super. Okay. Now, let's explore now this question. What do you think ego's purpose could be for the human existence? Let's explore this question. What do you think the ego's purpose could be in the human existence? Anybody can share. There's no right or wrong answer. Everything is right. Because it's your truth. Anita, I can see you unmuting.
So, is it to create a stronger sense of identity for oneself?
Okay, that's what you feel. So there's no right or wrong answer. That's your feeling. Okay, great. Any other thoughts? What do you think ego's purpose? If you like to share in the chat, you can share through chat also if you're not able to speak. But I like to hear your voices a bit. Hi,
It just ensures the branding. It tells you who you are to an extent. I mean, positive, negative, that's related again, but it kind of a branding.
Okay, thank you for sharing. And I also see Rujuta saying to enable us to become better and better. Okay. Any other thoughts?
I would say it's kind of a protection at times, not always.
Okay. Interesting. Yes, Shailaja.
So I think it is just what you call an approach or what do you call it? An inner sort of belief that you can elevate your sense of self through that. Like, I mean, it just is subconscious that makes you elevate your sense of self, whether it is in the right way or the wrong way. I mean, it can happen both ways.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks for sharing. And I also see Swati saying self-preservation medium. Interesting. Anything else? Any other thoughts? That's it? Okay. Okay, Rohit, for us to adapt to the changes. Amazing. All right. So keep sharing in the chat if you haven't got an opportunity to share yet. Okay. So in this research, when I asked about the meaning of ego from the participants, these are the couple of things that that they shared, and I would like to actively listen to what I'm going to share with you right now. Okay. The innate human desires that fulfill self needs. Attributes or abilities of mine that I feel good about. One takes pride about themselves, only forgetting the people around them do. My state of understanding of myself, my self-esteem, and self-assurance in the current moment. Self-importance, state of mind. Meanness that comes along as I interact with the world around me. I see it as when my thought process comes in between the oneness in the world. Mind, something what wants to survive under any circumstances. Two parts to it, one person has said. One which is linked with self-respect and the other which has a negative connotation to it where I don't respect the other. Ego is holding on to a belief and acting based on that. Now, I have shared 10 things now. Tell me how many of you resonate, do not resonate, agree, disagree on this. Any thoughts, reflections based on what you have shared, what I have shared so far? Anything you want to say? No? Okay. I'm going to continue the list. What else? Okay. I write a sense of self. The self that defines your mental and emotional hygiene. My way, my motivations. The driving force behind an individual that helps the individual to function effectively in a society. A sense of self-respect and self-esteem. Adamant, which conflict with fairness and ethically correct stance. It is an identity we hold about oneself. My perception of myself, my self-worth, overall associated with it. The union of the spirit and the physical form gives rise to ego. So I'm going to share the screen for you to see what I shared right now. Just take a pause and tell me, is there anything that you agree or disagree about it? Or is there a pattern that you're noticing here? So I'm just sharing out of 38 responses, the 50% of the data only I'm sharing here. Any thoughts, reflections?
A lot to do with self.
Okay. Anything else? Rujita says point 114, I resonate with. Patterns on self, Swati saying. Okay. It's all about me. Okay.
It's also about righteousness.
It's also about righteousness. Okay, great. So if you have any more reflections, you can share in the chat. So this, I'm at the, since I don't want to bore you by sharing many more, but you can just have a glance of the rest of the 50% data just to get an idea. It's again, some of them are duplicated, some could be different, but these are the kind of responses that we received from the 38 participants. Okay. Now, did anybody feel, oh my God, how can even someone think like that? Did anyone feel some like that? How can even someone think like this about ego? Why would they think like this? If you have felt, I mean, even if they're not knowingly, cognitively, you're not expressing this, if you have felt in your body, like, why would someone say this when you're talking about ego? I would like to remind you that what is out there in the larger system is a reflection of ourselves. What is inside in this individual system is also reflected back to the larger system. And it's applicable for the ego also. Okay. So if there's any part of this sharing that you feel that I don't resonate with, I like to invite you to take a pause and reflect. Why don't I resonate with this? Why is that? Ask that question. Okay. So then we also explored about good ego and bad ego. What is your belief about good ego versus bad ego? Can I know that? What are your thoughts about good ego and bad ego? Bad ego can hurt others. Okay. Carlotta feels, I feel it is a bit limiting. Okay.
I mean, I could connect that with the bad ego.
Ah.
I think when you have, I mean, now that you asked the question, the bad ego for me, it sounds like the one which also full of judgments, the one that doesn't allow you to grow in a different way that you just already thought that is my identity. So that's, I think is very limiting.
Okay, great, interesting. Any other thoughts? Please share, take a moment to reflect, because these are things we don't sit and think about in a normal life. Good ego is self-esteem, self-respect, but an forceful, overpowering belief that we have can harm relationships. All of us have both. How can we use our skills and strengths to serve others while keeping our selfishness in check? Shailaja and Rujita are sharing. Interesting. It's thundering here the moment I'm sharing this. Anything else about good ego and bad ego? Okay. Anything you like to share through voice? Okay, great. So I just want to invite you to think like this. When I ask the participants, this is what they're saying. It's very interesting. They had the reasonings also for their answers. Trust me, they had pretty much convincing reasons to say this is the thing. 60% of the people said ego is bad. Okay. 34% said, no, ego is, I mean, there's nothing, no, there's no good ego, bad ego. And 5% said, sorry, I don't know whether there's good ego or bad ego. Is it ego? Why bad and good? That's outside perception and impression. Exactly, Swati. That's the point that I'm trying to tell you here. There's nothing called good or bad in ego. But in a normal conversation, when we are talking about somebody, how do we say, oh, that person has a lot of ego, yeah. See the way he's walking, talking, the way he's treating others. Have we said, wow, this person has wonderful ego. See the way he's treating others. Do we talk like that? There you go. Catch yourself. What is the conditioning that the society is trying to do with all our minds is ego is a bad thing and an unhealthy behavioral trait. But ego is kind of a neutral thing. There's no good or bad ego. Okay. Let me say more about it. What do I mean by this is, our ego is the way we understand ourselves, the other person, and the world inside us and outside us. So there are two worlds that we live with. Okay, inside us there's a world and outside us there's a world. How do we relate to ourselves as well as how do we relate to the world in connection to ourselves? This is what the role play day in and day out that we are playing with ourselves as well as with all the relationships that we have outside, which includes human beings, nature, objects, situation, scenario. It could be everything. Okay. There's always a running commentary in our head, which we call the self-talk. It is saying you are this, you are that. Sometimes it's giving you some empowering words. Sometimes it's giving you disempowering words. Okay. So the moment that dialogue starts, I am no longer in communication with the other person. I'm actually in communication with that labeling, which ego is trying to tell me. Okay, my presence with the person who's sitting in front of me versus my conversation with my own role play that's going inside my head. Okay, so that's why we say in coaching sessions that you need to take care of your coaching presence, because there's a high potential that your inner conversation can take the front seat when there is any resonance or dissonance to the client's story. Okay, or maybe it's your own ego playing also. So if we choose to engage with the person with our senses, who is present in that person, it is the most divine way to connect yourself with the other person with oneness. In that space, there's no blame. We don't blame others. We don't have fixed mindset. It's a place where you perceive the others as they are from their co-presence, with your co-presence. So your co-presence, their co-presence, in that the ego will dissolve. Both co-presence will meet in a common place. Okay. Ego also comes with a compulsive and conditioned thought process, saying this is, now what's your language? There's one way to look at it is, how many times do I use the language, I have to do this? I can't do this. I will never do this. I always do this. So these are all compulsive and conditioned thought process. Okay. So we don't even know sometimes that we are thinking of it from an egoic consciousness, but it has become part and parcel of our life. Sometimes it may not reflect through our language, but the meaning we give to that sentence is influenced by our ego. After I start to identify some object as identified as mine, let's say you got a house, you're saying, okay, this is mine. When I'm separated from that house, or think of your child maybe, okay, a mother who's so fond of her child, now suddenly she is losing her child. What happens? That separation, because of that, it makes you feel like a part of you was taken away from you. Have you ever wondered from where this feeling is coming? It is coming from a place where your ego sits with you. When your ego is affected by that, which triggers you in different ways, that start makes you to feel like you're separate from the other person. So we identify ourselves with our parents, race, religions, fathers, mothers, nationality, opinions, beliefs, values. These identifications are happening only from the surface reality of who you are, which is influenced by your ego. But if we take that away, we are more than that as a deeper reality. Now, how did I get to know about it? When I was thinking about, okay, I have to do something differently about my own mastery journey, I was just thinking about, okay, I really want to do something. I really love my hair. And I was thinking, I just want to donate my hair. Now, I don't know how does it feel? What would it do to me? Nothing. but it was a bit scary. The whole process was scary and challenging. Before the process, during the process, after the process. I was also judged by people for making that decision and also going through that process. And I was also judging my own self. And I was even, when I was flying to Maldives for a work assignment, I was checked by the police 2-3 times because of I have taken away my hair. So what it has done to me, why it can make a lot of difference? Because we are identifying not only ourselves, also others from our egoic consciousness. So the identity that we carry for ourselves and how we project on others also connected to this egoic consciousness. So the moment a part of you, have you even come across people who have like gone through issues like they have to take a part of their body, could be breast cancer or some diseases like that. Why they feel so scared about it is a part of themselves being taken away. It actually affects their ego in a very sensitive level. So the importance is, if we can come to a state of mind where I am okay to let go something that I really like a lot about my identity, that is the state of mind where I am not objectifying myself to the egoic consciousness. I am detaching myself and able to see the separate core self, where if any part of myself goes away from me, I can still be, feel, and understand my core self. And it's a journey, it's not so easy. And to get there, I think this is what the mastery about. How do we get there? How can I? So there's a lot of reading we do, a lot of programs we follow, a lot of journeys we go through. But most of the time we are okay to let go the things that we don't like. But will we ever choose to let go the things what we like the most? And why? Because of the ego's influence. So that's just an example. So I'm going to pause here and ask from all of you. If you have to think about your own ego, with whom do you demonstrate the ego the most? Who is that person in your life? Could be one relationship, more than one relationship. I'm also going through the chat. Rujita says, very interesting conversation, but need to drop off. Okay. Is ego the same as personality? Good question. I think she's no more with us, right? Maybe we can answer a question later. Or what do you think? Is it ego is the same personality? Is ego the same as personality?
I don't think so.
Yeah. Okay. So let's keep exploring. Okay, it's not the personality. So it also depends on what do you define when you say personality. If you think personality means values, beliefs, traits, and etc., if your definition is that, it could be. But if you say personality means your core self, it may not be. So it's all in relation to that individual who is sitting in front of you and how they relate to each and everything with themselves and with the world is variable. Completely variable. And sometimes our ego wants to push the way we relate others also should relate in the same way. And that's why we come up with our opinions. We say, this is the way to do this. Why? We relate it to A and B this way. So we want others also to relate it in that way. But who knows what is good and what is bad? Nobody knows. Who knows what is right and what is wrong? Nobody knows. And that's why I really love to use the word greater good always in my conversations. Greater good is something which is unknown. And you keep exploring this unknown to see where it's taking you. While you work on your own ego in your mastery journey. It can look gray to one person. It can look black to another person. It can look white to another person. It may not have a shape at all to another person. And there's nothing right or wrong about it. So going back to my question again, who is a person that you show, demonstrate the ego the most? We asked this question when we did the survey also, and I'm curious to know from you all too.
I would say I use ego to strangers more than close ones. That's my observation.
Okay. What about the others?
I think sometimes it comes in the way of our relationships. Even though we say family understands you well, but the ego does come up more within family. So whenever you are at the workplace, you have to show your professionalism, and you have to adjust and tolerate and things like that. I mean, to a certain extent. So I think it's with family that you become a little bit rigid. I mean, it could be any member in the family. It could be your partner, it could be your spouse, it could be your children, it could be anyone.
And this is where I like to invite you all to think about what is the reasoning you give in making these choices. Why Ramya is choosing the strangers? And why Shailaja? It's not just about Ramya and Shailaja. We all are choosing somebody to demonstrate our ego day in and day out. Okay? Sometimes people might choose their own self to demonstrate their ego. They are being egoistic to their own self. Yeah, Rohit also says it's more with my close ones. So I think the reasoning also comes with the sustainability of the relationship or the situation or the threat. This is the pattern that I'm noticing from what you all are sharing, right? So the Ramya's ego is taking the possibly the front seat because of a sense of threat that's coming out of the fear. Okay, it's like a protective mechanism. Ego is trying to be a protective mechanism when you see the strangers. But in Shailaja's case, it's more about it's sustainable. Like it's okay. I can show. Fine. Okay. So I also show my ego mostly with my closest people only. So we all have our own patterns and reasonings of why we choose to demonstrate our ego with different people. Okay. And there's nothing right or wrong again. It's because of the reasoning we give to our own self of why it's okay to show it. So that's why you might wonder, like, can this person ever abuse his wife? He doesn't even treat women like that in the office. I'm so surprised that he is abusing his wife. In office, his reasoning for not using his ego versus at home, his reasoning to use the ego is different. So it's all about the reasoning our ego is trying to give is actually guiding us to these different traits. So if we're talking about mastery in ego, okay, exploring mastery, exploring ego in mastery, okay, when you are working in mastery, you will be challenged so many times with your own ego. Just like, you know, the scriptures we have studied, there are some monks, they have prayed for so many years and years and years, and suddenly one splash comes and takes away all the boons that they have collected. Just those are all tests. So it also proves that your ego is not something that you can bottle it up and keep it, saying, okay, I have worked and it's done and dusted now. It's a present continuous journey where you have to keep on working on it. Because as long as there is thoughts, it will come and go. And as long as there is brain, you will have thoughts. And this is the part of your own co-creation. So let's see what was the results from the research. Okay. So interestingly, yes, the first highest was family and close circle. Second was work environment, and third one was social spaces. See, it also depends on the frequency of time that you spend with these people, right? When I know I have to spend only 1 hour per year in a social space, my ego is okay to take the back seat and wait for that 1 hour. But when you are with your family and close people, how much can you put it into the back seat? It will come to the front seat somehow. So this data could also be relevant to so many things like that. How much, the frequency of time you spend, the reasoning you give, etc., etc. So people feel that the ego serves and doesn't serve based on their own beliefs. So some people say, yes, it serves. Some people say, no, it doesn't serve. Some people say, ego is important to keep my spouse in control. So it's all beliefs we have built based on the system and our understanding about life. So many people express from the knowing state. Why I call it knowing state is, knowing is not equal to understanding and embodiment. Embodiment is totally different from knowing. So from the knowing state that they're saying they will choose to let go the ego if they have to. And this is where the deep transformational work is required to do from the being level for it to be embodied. Okay, so here only we have a lot of work to do as coaches. It's more than the knowing level in the being level, embodiment level. Okay, so why I'm saying this is the interesting fact that came out of this research, and it's also proven into other books and all also, that will you ask for forgiveness if you have, showed the ego to somebody? 60% of the research participants said it's difficult for them. And 60% of, sorry, it has to be 40%. 40%, no, 60% said it's possible also, which means they think in some areas it's difficult, some areas possible. That's why you have that 60-60 data. Okay. So the 20% of the people have voted for both. Some have voted only for not able to do, and some have voted for can do. So what could be the potential relationship between ego and forgiveness then? What do you think? Because forgiveness can be one way to navigate our own egos. But we do not choose that. Don't think that you don't know to choose that. You have been taught from small age, forgive people, blah, 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 everything. But we don't choose, and we conditionally choose, even if you're choosing. Some people we choose, some people we don't choose. Some situations we choose, some situations we don't choose. And who makes the decision? It's our egoic consciousness is making that decision. Forgiving means you coming to a neutral space, you let go your ego, where you're completely centered and you surrender to the other individual and able to connect to your core self, to the other person's core self. It's like a very deep transformation. I'm talking about not like, oh, I'm sorry. Not that sorry. Okay. It's real forgiveness. You feel for the other person you forgive, right? If you go and ask anybody in this world, I'm sure you might have your own coaching clients too. There will be at least one person they are still not able to forgive in their lives, or have taken a lot of time to forgive. They might tell outside, yeah, I have forgiven, but behind this person, they will have a lot of stories to talk about. So if I am talking about somebody behind this person, that means I have not yet forgiven this person. That's why I'm carry forwarding. My ego is carry forwarding those emotions. Okay, I'm going to pause here and ask, what do you think could be the potential relationship between ego and forgiveness in your understanding?
So, Anushly, I have something to say. I don't know whether it's right or wrong, but ego, I mean, for me, the forgiveness should come if you are, if it's not only about ego, it's also about being hurt. So, I mean, your original nature, your personality comes in the way. So that's the deeper influence on ego in some relations, in some aspects. Like if you're sensitive, you get hurt. So your ego doesn't allow, whether it's ego or your sensitivity doesn't allow you to forgive that person. You are deeply hurt. Then also at the same time, you have a certain personality trait like stubbornness. And you say, no, why should I forgive this person? It's his fault, right? Or her fault. So it's like a combination of personality, your feelings, how far can you let it go. I mean, it's a combination of many things. So this is what I think. I mean, and that's why it happens with close family, because you expect them to understand you, but when they don't, and then there's anger also when you say, okay, why is he or she not understanding what I'm trying to say? So you want to force your belief on that person because it's your opinion. They are thrusting their opinion on you. It can happen that way. It works both ways, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of things. There are so many things at play here. I mean, just the thoughts that came to my mind as you were speaking.
Thank you so much, Shailja, for sharing. Tell me, is it your core self is getting hurt or your ego is getting hurt?
No, I think sometimes it's hurt. Sometimes it's just hurt because of the way you have been treated, or you would like to be treated and it's not happened. I mean, these are examples from our real life. It happens to everyone, right? You're not treated the way you want to be treated, but you are treating an ex person in a specific way and in the way that they would like to be treated. So these are the things that come up.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know whether it's ego.
Yeah.
I still haven't understood, kind of figured that out.
Great. Thank you for exploring that thought, because you can see a clear connection, ego, expectation, hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So
Okay.
who is creating this expectation? Is it the core self or the ego is creating the expectation?
I think sometimes it's an expectation or a given in a relationship. Like it's understood, right? I mean, mother-daughter, sister, brother. I mean, there is a certain way of life there, right?
Yeah.
So you
I totally understand what you're trying to say, but I like you to think this further, a step ahead and see, okay, who is setting the expectation? Is it my core self or my ego is trying to set the expectation? Okay, set means asking, expecting from the other person, right? So when I set the expectation, what is ego trying to tell me is, I want this in this shape, this color, this size. So this co-creation is happening by the ego, consciousness. Okay. But if the core self is trying to build a relationship with the other person, the core selves will meet the core self of the other, which do not have a shape, size, color to it. So the place for expectation dissolves, but still they will be uniting in a common ground. For that to happen, we have to do a lot of deep work with our own selves to meet the other person in that place. That's what I'm talking about.
correct.
So ego looks like the emotional face of expectation. Yes, that's another way we could say that. Ramya, yeah. So so a lot of times we are saying that I'm not egoic. That person has a lot of ego. I'm not like that. I'm nice. I'm great. But to be honest, each and every person in this world has ego. But how we transfer and communicate with that ego is different from one person to another.
Yeah.
And see, we are also narrating stories to keep our ego in comfort, right? To prove that our ego is right. Even though we don't give the name ego to it, we say, you know what, this is how it has to be. Right. So this whole expiration is, even for me, it was an eye-opening to understand that what I have been taught and have been knowing about ego, and what actually ego is, and how challenging it is to work on it, especially when you are on that's why I say the real mastery is you being able to work continuously on your ego. It is going to coexist within you. You cannot pull it out and say, hey, I have thrown you out now. Okay. So even when I was sending the messages in the group, WhatsApp group, I was asking myself, why am I sending? Is my ego trying to say that I want to do this presentation, I want to show you, come and join me? Or I curiously want people to participate in my conversation? I was asking myself, because there's a slight potential for my ego to take the higher step and, trying to prove others of the things that I'm trying to do. And if you constantly see, most of the people are busy trying to prove, living a life trying to prove versus trying to live the life itself. If you go to the organization, it's the same. If you take your couple relationship, or parents trying to prove they are the best parents for their children, or children trying to prove to their parents that, they are the best achievers in the class. This proving, where is this proving coming from? I keep wondering, no matter how much I educate my children, my son comes up with this, I need to show that I'm the first to finish the work. Now, so I understand it's coming from the egoic consciousness. Egoic mind wants to prove that it's something more than the others. And this is there inside all of us. And we cannot deny on that. So I'm going to quickly take you through the relationship between ego and forgiveness now. So if you take all the complaints we have in our life, okay, 90% of the times, it is not meant to bring change, these complaints. These complaints we are making is to strengthen our own ego. Oh, today I have a bad day. Today my leg is paining. Today my client did pay me. All this to strengthen my ego only, I'm making this complaint. Ego is trying, maybe it's trying to attempt that somebody is wrong, trying to prove the righteousness. Somebody is wrong and that I'm right. So for an example, let's say you go to a restaurant, somebody brings soup. Now you're saying, this soup is cold, go and bring back another soup with hot temperature. So you are actually not seeing the soup as soup. You're connecting the soup with the person who's bringing the soup. You're personalizing it with your own ego. Okay? So when you personalize, the other person becomes someone different than you. So when the other person becomes someone different than you, how can you connect from your core self to the other person's core self? It's very difficult. It's very challenging. So without negativity, you can still fix this problem by just only objectifying without connecting to the person. Can you bring hot soup for me? You just say the facts of, like in a coaching session, we share observations. That's what we say, right? Not to say you did this. We never say that in a coaching session. We say, I'm observing this. The moment I say you, I'm trying to trigger that person's ego. Because I have created a personalization to that. Now, this is going to separate me from my client in my coaching presence. The trust and intimacy is going to get disturbed in a coaching process because of that. Okay, it's the same even in a normal life. If you think of all the couple fights, family fights for assets, all the racial fights, everything is because of that. All these are based on righteousness. And who is seeking for righteousness? It's our egoic consciousness is seeking for righteousness. So if we can try to separate and see, it can create more positive impact in the world. So couple of things I could think of, like when you have this complaining mind, you can catch that mind and ask yourself, is this trying to bring change within myself or is this trying to bring the righteousness? What is in it me that feels hurt when someone hurts something? Ask it from yourself. Actually, what is getting hurt is your ego. And pondering on why your ego is getting hurt will help you to differentiate your ego and see it with a different lens, like I showed in the first slide. It's not about seeking for something, changing the lens of your own narration. So many people in a situation like that, what they do is they get into anger. I always have thought, why do I get angry with my children? It's a need to control. For things to happen the way I planned it to be. When things don't happen the way I planned it to be, I become angry. So I express that differently. In fact, I shared a quote, I think today or yesterday in a group. I would like to share. Very interesting quote. I really love that. Somebody has shared, and it says like this, right? Life has to be viewed as a constant flow rather than a rigid schedule. When we live in flow, we don't get too much disturbed by the changes coming up during the day. A major reason of frustration happens when we try to control our day minute by minute. Mindfulness helps us to navigate through the day more positively by allowing things to be as they are. Not only things, even people to be as they are, okay? Instead of controlling all the outcomes. Many times changes are good but we resist because we can't see what would have happened otherwise. Because we're always thinking out the worst scenario only, not the best scenario. So, for an example, your car might break down, right? You missed your important meeting, but later during the day, you came to know that there was a major accident on your route, almost at the same time when you would have been there. So, retrospectively, when you look at it, the uncertainty actually saved you. Do I make sense? But why we don't approach life like that? Because our egoic consciousness wants to prove the righteousness. So, Rohit, I would like to invite you to share a few words like what are you understanding about your own ego so far in this whole conversation?
Ego. It's a big, big three-letter word, but such a big, massive challenge within ourselves, right? The inner self, which we need to counter. So what I'm getting at is, it's not in one session that we can discuss a lot of things. You know, it probably needs more time, more self-reflection, more. Again, it's egoism, and I can't get it done this time. But yeah, so lots to ponder about, lots to ponder.
Thank you for sharing, Rohit. Right.
Thank you. Have a good one. See you guys. Bye.
See you.
So, yeah.
All right. So going back to the slides, we just explore the relationship between the ego and the forgiveness, right? So for the most human beings, a spiritual teacher is suffering. So we are told suffering is the only way that you learn life. I also thought the same. But the truth is, our ignorance about our ego is the reason for our suffering. If we take care of it with our self-awareness, our level of suffering can be low. For an example, if you want to go for a meeting and you couldn't make it on time, you have two choices to make. Just let it go and move on with your self-awareness. Or keep feeding your ego, complaining about it, and suffering thinking about what you have missed by not going for the meeting. And who is making the choice? You are making the choice. It's like sometimes it's autopilot mode, because from small days it could have been like that sometimes, or it could be it's happening on its own. But we also have the power and choice to pause and bring our self-awareness into the front seat and tell this ego, hey, stop this now, enough. Let me spend my rest of the day very well. Just one meeting I'm not going to allow that one meeting to spoil my day. So you might come across people talking about collective grievances. These are all collective ego being present in the consciousness. Family grievances. Sometimes family grievances, that consciousness is passed to you. You are continuing even without your knowing. Okay. So now my question to you is, after all this reflection, what is your understanding about the mastery in ego? What is your understanding? Anybody likes to share?
I would say it's about mastering the expectations.
Okay.
It's a kind of, I feel like it's a kind of emotional intelligence related to expectations. If you can master that, I feel like it can master the ego also.
Okay. Shailaja, what are your thoughts on that?
So I feel that as I hear you speak, there's a lot of paradigm shift that we have to make, like examples of missing a meeting and seeing what, things like that. Look at what the day holds for you, not what you have missed. So a lot of positivity will also support uh, the ego coming, will not allow the ego to come in the way. And I mean, also your own personality, your to a certain extent, it has a certain influence also on your ego. Like if you're stubborn, if you're humble, your ego will not come in the way. It will allow you to think differently. I mean, letting things go, all those things as well. So there's a lot. Ego, as we say, as is not your core self. Now I get it. Core self is the one that is sort of not rigid. It is an understanding self, the aware self, whereas the ego is the rigid self, and the person, the conscious, the inner self, or the subconscious that doesn't allow you to do things the way they should be done, in a way, just so that you can keep up relationships, keep up positivity in your life, or go with the flow, give the benefit of doubt, all these things.
Right. So now, thank you so much for sharing that. I'm going to share a few questions in the chat, and I like you to explore. Think about your greatest challenge that you have right now in your life. Anything. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And wait a minute, I'm just trying to share. Okay, can you see the chat? I have put the questions. Okay. I'm gonna share a slide, and I like you to pick one number from this. Which number are you picking?
Oh, I can't see that slide down.
You cannot see? I'm
You
sorry.
mean the
Yeah.
bullets? The bullets, yeah.
No. Can you see now?
Yeah.
First, think about the challenge, your greatest challenge,
Mm-hmm.
and your relationship that you have with ego. Okay. And now pick one number. Tell me which number you're picking.
What is the...
Anything.
You can pick any number?
You like.
Okay. So should we write the number in the chat?
No, just pick a number. That's it. First, pick a number. Tell me what number.
Okay. 2.
2. And Ramya?
Yeah.
7.
Okay. So I'm gonna open the 2 and 7. I like you to ponder with what is behind 2 and 7 in resonance to ego and the challenge you picked for yourself. Okay. And I'm going to give you 2 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes to do this exercise. And you are going to partner with each other and do this exercise.
Okay, so how will we see what's behind 2? Okay. Okay. Hmm. Hi, Ramya.
Hey, hi.
How are you?
Good. I'm good. How are you? I'm glad to talk to you
I'm good.
again, by the way.
Yeah. So see, both of us are.
So based on this exercise, what was your key understanding about your own ego and ego of the other person? What's the, I mean, there were some questions that I've given, right? Like, how did this exploration help you to understand about your ego and the other person's ego? And also what surprised you the most?
Hmm. So what I felt is that ultimately it's my expectation. My ego is expecting something. And that what surprised me was that to prove myself right while others are, to others, proving myself right to others. I think that's what we just discussed. Yeah.
Yeah, I would also resonate to that. Like, ego happens when there is expectation. And there is no expectation and you allow life to flow, as you mentioned, then that's fine. But if you're expecting this has to happen in this way today, and if that is not happening, then that ego start to work. So, yeah, I would say ego is expectation.
Yeah. So what I have also discovered from my own journey is finding your true self-esteem beyond the extreme emotions is the mastery in ego, which is a continuous present, continuous work. So at least I know that my ego is at play. And also my ego is not only play when I am superior, but also when I feel inferior also. So sometimes people think egoistic superior people who treat themselves like superior are the people who have ego. No, even people who have inferiority complex also are struggling with their own ego. So for an example, if somebody is shy, the fear is to be wanting, to be heard, to be recognized. Can they see me? Can they approve me? Kind of a feeling is going on. And where is this coming from? It's coming deep down from the shy person who has unexpressed desire to be superior. Okay. So you want to play a role of being big to show that you're big enough, to show your true self-esteem to the other person. So the self-esteem is finding your depth of your being and knowing, which means the continuous source of life and intensity of power lies in that place. So when you go to that depth, there's no need for ego. But when you go, when you don't go to that depth, the source self, that is where either your inferiority or superiority is playing a role in empowering your ego. So that's why sometimes we choose to show ourselves to the world as a victim of a life or an incident of a relationship or of a person or a failure or something like that. Or we try to show to the world that we are big enough, loud enough, good enough than other, better enough with the awards, like with all those validations basically. So most of the time, so this is the, so you would have seen some people saying, that person is just trying to show off. Actually, that is coming from their own ego. And they say the other person has ego. Can you see that? Right. So in self-esteem, you're not attached to the labels you play. You don't get angry when you get criticized. You don't feel that you're better than the other person. You're able to meet the other person as who they are, where they are, what they are. Like we say, meet your client where they are in your coaching relationship. Meet the client as who they are in your coaching relationship. Not the way you want them to be, not in the place that you want them to be, not in the speed that you want them to achieve the goals. It's all meeting them where they are and empowering them for them to elevate their journey. So now this could be difficult and requires continuous deep work, and that's what is all about. This whole life existence is all about working on it. And we choose different pathways. Some people choose coaching, some people do meditation, blah, blah, blah. There's no right or wrong pathway. So to bring this conversation to closure, we have different truths because we haven't gone deep enough to unite with the common truth. Okay? And that's why we disagree with, either we have resonance with a group of people or we have a dissonance with another group of people. If we can come to a level where we will not have resonance or dissonance, that is like the elevated level where we are meeting the other person in the common truth. And when we meet in that common truth, like these two boys are walking together, we can walk shoulder to shoulder with anybody in our lives. It can be a murderer, a person who has done a murder. It can be a drug addict. It can be a good person, anybody. And we will not separate people saying good or bad, nice, ugly. We all can meet in that common truth. So this is all about today's session, and this is just the first phase of the exploration. If you want to continue my exploration that I'm doing in my own journey, you can check my LinkedIn newsletters that I keep writing as I keep exploring. Sometimes I myself don't understand. So I understand if you don't understand my newsletters sometimes. So that's because sometimes you cannot express it through language. Language is so limiting. It's difficult to express that universal truth. It's a sensual thing, I would say, right?
Yeah.
So tell me, what are you walking away with from today's session? And thank you so much for being with me until end of the session. I really appreciate the curiosity to be with me today. What are you walking away with?
So thank you, Anushly. It was a wonderful session. Really, it means a lot. And I mean, whether we understand it fully, at least whether I understand it fully or not, but yes, I do know that it all makes sense. We have to just continue working on ourselves. So my takeaway is just this, that belief and expectations are, belief is really the higher form of ego for me, where you really stand your own ground and you don't, I mean, you just don't move from your beliefs. Okay, that is what, it's your opinion, it's your belief, it's your view. The second level, a little below, is that expectation that you have causes a lot of strife in your relationships. And whether it comes from ego, I still have to explore that more in within me, whether it's my personality or whether it's as an influence on my ego, or what is it I do. I have to still arrive at that conclusion. And I would also want to ask you one question before I leave, before we go, is that, when there are people around us who are forcing their beliefs or all getting together and grouping, it's like you versus them, then Are you going to take it lying down, go with the flow and say, let it go, let them speak, let them say it, right or wrong? They don't understand you. They don't know what you are about and where you're coming from. So either you let it go or you stand up and, speak your mind. So there is this thing that I have.
I understand this question, right? I was also in your place at some point in my journey.
Mhm.
The moment I started to do a lot of self-inquiry, exploring my own ego in the mastery journey, I realized what comes out versus what's happening inside. When I compare that, inside there's so much burden story is going on versus outside. And I am probably talking about the 10% happening outside, and I'm blaming the person sitting outside me who is not even in my control. Whereas inside, already 90% a person is influencing me with my ego. When I think of it, I can be kind to the person who is outside. Do I make sense?
Some extent, because they don't know your story. So how are you going to sit and explain the whole
No,
background to them?
There's explanation is coming from a place of ego again. For righteousness, seeking for righteousness, right? If
Seeking
you can,
validation.
yes, seeking validation comes from the seeking for righteousness. If you can help to evolve to a point where you can observe your own ego story, you will also start to observe the other person ego story. And when you compare the story of the other person having influence on you versus you having influence on your own self, your influence is higher than the person outside. But why we don't get to see that is when we sit with the problem, we don't see the problem. When the problem is outside us, we can see that clearly. That's what we do in coaching, right? We separate the client from the problem. Because we are sitting in our mind, we are not able to see with that mirror. But the moment we start seeing it with the mirror, we understand what's outside is tiny compared to what's happening inside. The significance change, and you will start to understand the other person and meet the other person in the co-presence. And is this easy? It's not easy. It comes with a lot of deep work and practice.
So in a situation like this, what will you do? I mean, you just say, okay, I
Start the work with you.
give up.
Forget about the person outside. Forget about the situation. Start the work with you. Just see that question I asked earlier in one of the slides. What is your ego trying to do here? Who is hurt here? Is it my core self or my ego? Why is my ego is hurt here? What is the story it's telling to me? Not to the other person. It's telling the story to me. And what is the change in narration that I might have to do to make it an empowering story, so that I can meet the other person as who they are, where they are in the co-presence with my co-presence. It starts with you, not from outside. But why do we choose outside? Because that's the easiest thing to do. Blaming others or telling someone else was wrong. So you don't, I'm not saying we all do this. That's what I want you to know. It's not only you, Shailaja. I also do this. We all do this. Okay. But with different relationship, with different levels we do, because every time when our ego is hurt, we will react to that. If we can convert the reaction into response, mindful response, through slow practice. Now, even after, though I'm talking today with you like this, there might be a next moment where I might shout at my kids. Because my ego is sitting with me. It coexists with me. I cannot separate. But what has become different after this journey is I catch my thought there and I pause and I shift the gear. So slowly the gear is changing. The story is changing, things are changing. So it's a continuous practice basically. And that's the journey about. Life is about that. A lot of people think going and conquering the world outside is the most difficult thing. Conquering the world inside is the most difficult. And that's
That's
why those
true.
days rishis and all those monks went and sat with themselves and spent years and years and years and years. Why? Because they knew it is not about overcoming the fears outside, the demon outside, doing the bungee jump or water rafting, all those things. It's inside. If I can't sit with myself for an hour, oh, that's a sign to say there's a demon that I need to work with. So I invite you to go inside and ask yourself questions more and more than asking from outside. So I'll pause here at the interest of the time and ask Ramya's thoughts also before we close. Ramya.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you, Anushly, for such a wonderful space to think and go inside ourselves. So to be honest, I came to the session with the expectation to understand how to master the ego. And now when the session is closing, I understand that the answer lies in that question itself. Right? I came with the expectation. So I'm going back. I got the answer, by the way. My expectation for the session has been met beautifully. And in that question itself, the answer was there. So that's a wonderful realization. And I didn't see how time passed, like 1.5 hours now, right? So thank you so much for that.
Yes. Thank you so much once again for being here and
Thank
until
you.
the end of the session. I really appreciate that. It is not, you all were meant to be here. It's not
Yeah.
that you chose to be here. Sometimes I feel it's you were meant to be here. So probably for some reason, like I said that quote earlier, we don't know a lot of things. We think we know, but there are things happening beyond us. So with that thought process, I wish you good luck to keep exploring the ego in your mastery, which is a continuous lifelong journey, and enjoy the journey as well. Not to be kind while you're doing that is also very important. Not to be too harsh on yourself. It's okay to be kind when you keep exploring the ego in your mastery. You are not bad human being. It's our ego which is creating the influence. And God has given two things. He has given the ego and he has also given the power to make a choice to make the difference by choosing awareness every time the ego interferes. So it's up to us whether we want to take the easiest pathway, which is ignorance, or take the deep work, which is awareness. I will leave that choice with you. Thank you and all the best.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you. Bye.